Hey, what is up, YouTube? Still In Circ back here today for another video. Hey guys, today I got a new video for y'all today. Today we will be doing something actually new and very different, and I'm going to be starting a new series called Numisa Picks, which is spelled Numisapicks, and it's a capital P, and there's no space between the A and P with Numisa and Picks. It's going to be a new series called that. It's going to be a series basically generally more focused to geared to maybe new people coming into the hobby, as well as maybe also more basically coins you may not know about, certain things about coins, what to start out collecting with, certain things like that. So first video in the series is going to be this video. And this video today is going to be on odd denominations. Now I got a red book here because some of the coins are very expensive that I couldn't obtain, so I was able to obtain some of these coins, but I'm going to go into this book and I'm going to show you guys some of the coins that you may not know about. This is probably going to be more fractional denominations. So without further ado, I want to start off. So let's start here in my book. All right, this is a 2015 red book. I'll tell you a little bit about each coin, as well as its market value. And yes, market values may be a little bit outdated for this, but shouldn't be too bad. So as you see, we're going along. We're not going to be colonials, and we don't need to go small cents. We should be at half cents. We should start off with half cents, large cents, half cents. All right, so here's half cents. Now, half cents was as used half of a cent, because half cents back in the day weren't really, you kind of needed a half cents because not everything, because there wasn't as heavy inflation back then, and a penny could go farther than it does today. So that's why you have a half cent. Now, they are still technically legal tender, as by, I can't remember what act of 1969, they were declared legal tender again. And most of them are fairly reasonably priced. You can find most of them. Most of them are fairly inexpensive and AG-ish. However, I will note that I would not suggest starting off with the Liberty caps, but I would, if you were to start off, perhaps with maybe some more of the, braided hair half cents, potentially, to maybe even up to the, yeah, braided hairs are fairly inexpensive, and most of the cornet heads and matrons are fairly inexpensive. But it gets more expensive with the when you get the drape bus, and all the other crazy stuff. So yeah, I would suggest if you were to start off with any series, it's gonna have to be your matrons and your braided hairs. Now, I'm sorry if this video may come out a little rough, but this is just, me trying to, it's the start of a new series, so I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, without further ado, let's move on to the next kind of weird coin. It's going to be, you probably already know this, large cents. Now, most large cents are not terribly expensive in the lower grades. I would say they only start getting really expensive at about when you hit like Liberty Poles and drape bus. Again, mostly follows the same rules as the half cents. But yeah, most of the stuff from matrons up to, I would say, about braided hairs is not usually normally that expensive. So most of the time they can be obtained for roughly $20. So that's not that bad. And for half cents, almost exactly the same, about $20, $20 to $30. Anyways, moving on to our third coin in this book, let's move over to our 2-cent piece. Oops, we passed it. Here we go. Here's 2-cent pieces now. This is a fairly small series, if only about 9 years. Now, there is some expensive stuff, but not terribly expensive. If you were to get one for a typeset and you went with the 1864 large motto or anything up to the probably anything up to 1871, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. But you start to see a key date with the 1864 small mottos and the 1872s. But usually they're not that expensive and they're not bad coin and it's an odd denomination, so it's pretty neat. So, anyways, so moving on to our next coin, we'll get into our free cent silvers, which are known as trimes. Now, these are made of 75% silver from 1851 to 1853. You can tell, or you can read it, 75% silver and 25% copper. Now, they're one of the smallest U.S. coins with only a millimeter diameter of about 14 millimeters. Now, from 1854 to 1873, they were 90% silver and 10% copper. So it's pretty cool. And there is 1 year they did make it with a mint mark in 1851. Now, I have an example right here for you guys. I also have an example of a 2-cent piece right here. Now, this 1858 is 90% silver. And if there was an O mint mark, the O mint mark would be right in between those curls of the C. You would be able to see it. So this is what is known as a trime or free cent silver. So it's a pretty cool coin, and oops, sorry guys, just have something on the face of my camera. Now, oops, it's out of focus. Now most of them can be obtained with relative ease, and they're not horribly expensive, but there again, there are some when you get into more of the Civil War dates, there gets to be some expensive ones, and then anything past pretty much 1863 gets fairly expensive. So that's what leads into this guy right here, to the 3-cent nickels. Now, take a look. So these guys are a little bit bigger than your trime, and they are not made of silver whatsoever. They are made of copper nickel, like almost like basically the same composition as your nickel. Now, fun fact about these guys is since the silver trimes were mostly hoarded and melted during the during the Civil War because people were hoarding silver and most precious metals during then, the government decided to switch over to copper nickel issues, which look like these, and they're pretty neat. And they're not bad. Most of them can be also obtained with relative ease. As you can tell, mostly in G. We're looking at mostly in good grades, but then when you get into like the 1880s, it gets difficult and stuff kind of gets a little nuts. So let's move on to something else. We're going to get into half dimes now. Now, half dimes have been around since pretty much the beginning. They were basically the nickel all the way up to 1870, I believe 1876, if I'm not mistaken. Now I gotta check that because the first, 1866. Well, yeah, 1866. Let me actually just check that over with my half-time book. Sorry, I wish I did a little bit more time to take a look at that. No, they ran up till about the 1870s. Yeah, oops, it's dimes. Oh, I was looking at dimes. Yeah, well, they did go up to 1873. So yeah, they ran from about 1792 to 1873. So they had a pretty long mintage run. Now, most are fairly inexpensive, but that only really goes for the seated coinage. Now, when you get into cap bust, drape bust, flowing hairs, that all is where it gets extremely expensive. So if you were a beginning collector and you were just getting into, half dimes and stuff like that, I would suggest starting out with maybe the seated stuff because it's usually a little bit easier and less expensive. But there's some fairly expensive stuff. Most of the branch mints are fairly expensive, but when you get to the Civil War dates, it's kind of the opposite. Just because it was easier to strike stuff in San Francisco and the branch mints at the time because, the Civil War didn't extend all the way out to California. So, or California for San Francisco, that's, maybe I should define that a little bit better. But yeah. So, that was for half dimes. But now we're going to look into our fourth, well, no, not our fourth, but more of our maybe sixth or seventh, our seventh coin. Now our 7th coin we're looking at, which is actually fairly hard to collect and fairly hard to obtain. The easiest one would be different, is this. The easiest one is the 1875S, and it's still expensive. And this right here, you're wondering what is this? It's a 20-cent piece. Now these were meant really to circulate out west, but they were kind of difficult to circulate, and a lot of them were melted. Alright guys, I'm back. I'm sorry, I unfortunately had a bit of an issue while the camera kind of quit out, and I'm sorry, but as I think I left off somewhere with the coins being melted. Oh yeah, they were being melted. So as I said before my phone kind of conked out on me, we made 20-cent pieces, and most of them unfortunately were melted. As I said before, they were melted because they didn't really circulate that well. There wasn't really a need for them, and it was kind of unfortunate. But anyways, so let's get into more of our prices and stuff. So we see most pieces, even in about G4, selling for about no less than $100. Now that is because they are incredibly rare and a lot of them were melted, so a lot of them don't really survive. And that goes to show, especially with their tiny mintages, the highest mintage is only 1.1 million, which is incredibly small for a coin that's been melted in enormous, massive numbers. So it's very incredible to see such a coin still in existence, and it's still an amazing odd denomination to have in your collection. So without further ado, let's move on to our 8th and last coin. Let me see. Nope. It's gonna be not that. We are not including also the Stella $4 gold piece, considering it is a pattern strike and it was not intended for circulation, I believe. Well, maybe it was intended for circulation, but it was considered a pattern, so it's not really. I'm not really counting it. But let's go on to something that's also a more interesting denomination, the $3 gold piece. Now, I'm reading right off the red book here, but the $3 gold piece is also a fairly nice coin to have in your collection. However, it is also fairly pricey. And yes, a lot of them were melted too, unfortunately. That seems to be a plaguing issue for a lot of the coins that you might have that are odd denominations. And yeah, a lot of them were melted. I mean, lots of coins have been melted throughout history. I mean, look at all the Morgan dollars because of the Pittman Act of 1918, which forced a lot of Morgans to be melted. So there's only suggested to be about 2/3 to 1/3 of the population of original Morgans still left out there. But to continue on our $3 gold piece, this is number 8 by the way. The $3 gold piece is made of 22 karat gold, or 0.900. But yeah, I mean it's a fairly hard piece to collect because A, all the tiny mintages, and B, you also have to contend with the DeHunga mint and the New Orleans mint issues, which are worth a pretty penny, I have to say. They are pretty rare, with only the highest mintage being the only 1854, with only about 138,000, which is still incredibly high, or it's pretty high for the issue. But remember, A, a lot of them were melted, and B, you were also contending with a piece that, I mean, sure, it didn't circulate much, or it didn't circulate very well. Still, you're still looking at an $800 coin in VF, and just in VF, and that's pretty much the base price for a lot of these coins. Most coins won't dip underneath 800 for your $3 gold pieces. But anyways, guys, that concludes it. This concludes our awesome little series here. This is going to be the start of the new Missa Picks series. I hope you guys enjoy it. Here we are starting a new series. I hope you guys all enjoy it. I think it's going to be a great new series. This is the first video, so yes, it may look a little bit bad, and I apologize again for my camera issues. But hey, you know what? I think this is going to be a good series. I think you guys are all going to enjoy it. So have fun and stay tuned for more videos. I hope you guys enjoy.